Greetings, America. It is officially the new calendar year of 2021. Today is, in fact, January 21st, and it's also, or January 1st, 2021. It's a Friday, so therefore I'm wearing red to remember all of those deployed. I know it's been a little bit since I did my last video. There's been some recent changes. Monday the 21st, I went back to work. And there's been some challenges with that, trying to figure out the way forward with this new pandemic. Well, it's not a new pandemic, but since going back to work, it has been. Working from home has presented some challenges. But, we're moving forward, so that's good. And for those who may not have seen my introduction video, the five or six of you that watch these videos, thank you. The purpose of these videos is purely selfish in the sense that it's cathartic and it's therapeutic for me. The job that I currently have right now, I have to be very neutral. I'm essentially what amounts to a an educator or a briefer, if you will, and there's no place or space to have personal opinions. You can have personal opinions, they're not meant to be shared. And as somebody who has time to kind of keep a finger on the pulse of what's going on in the country, it's very hard not to have an opinion. So that's part of the reason I made these videos. And plus, I started to recognize some things as far as like the tribal alliances, and once you've chosen your tribe, it's like you have to dehumanize others. And how this thing kind of evolved is, as I talked to my therapist, um, one of the topics was celebrities and their opinions, celebrities having an opinion. And admittedly, my initial response was, you know, shut up and do your job, whether that's acting, whether that's musician, whether that's sports, whatever the case may be, shut up and do your job, your opinion's irrelevant, something along those lines. And then I had to stop for a moment, and I had to realize at some point, and I think it was during the COVID layoff I suffered, is there's a tremendous amount of arrogance in that statement, in which case with the exception of the finances and the celebrity status, I'm no different than them in having my own opinion and exercising my opinion. Admittedly, the biggest difference is influence. As a celebrity, you do have the power to influence, good, bad, or indifferent. And having had that realization, it gave me the opportunity to have more realizations, almost like a domino effect. And it got to the point where I was like, man, we're really picking these teams, and rather than trying to find common ground and recognizing that we can have a difference in opinion, but we don't have to dehumanize each other. We can have a difference in opinion and not necessarily hate each other. We can physically agree to disagree. There are certain people that may never get to that point. There are certain people who may be so steadfast in their beliefs or their opinions or whatever the circumstances are, where they're immovable, they're non-negotiable. And that's what really got me to the point where I wanted to create this channel, regardless of how many participants we get. Thankfully, my friend Hugh Evans has been willing to participate in the conversation. So, having framed all of that, I do promise to get a better web camera where I can hopefully manipulate some of the background settings so you're not seeing all my brewing equipment and all the bottles I've saved over the years of stuff, which, of course, several years ago they came out with an app, on tap or whatever I think it is. Anyways, but yeah, hopefully I can, do something better with the background, and I'll get better resolution. I have a new microphone that my sister's boyfriend got me, and a better headset, so hopefully there's some better production moving forward. But in trying to keep this within the 20-minute mark, which that's always been a goal, but depending on the topic, that's not always simple to meet. It is a new year, and many of us, in this country, in this world, this globe, we're looking forward to the calendar year change. We've kind of, much like Christmas for some people is the celebration of Christ. Some of us, it's something else entirely. It's goodwill towards people. It's the giving of gifts. It's a less religious aspect of it. Some people who may still harbor some older beliefs, it could be the celebration of the winter solstice or something, or the equinox. Can't remember. Somebody can correct me on that. New Year's kind of has its own persona. I mean, in theory, not much is different. We've just technically changed the calendar, which is how we measure time, which is essentially we're openly stating that we have made one full orbit around the sun. So, but moving beyond that, uh, many people always look at New Year's as a new beginning. Those resolutions, so on and so forth. And many of us, especially those that I see on Facebook or other forms of social media, are looking forward to 2021 with a sense of optimism, and I admire that. I wish I shared that same optimism. The only optimism I have is the fact that I finally went back to work and I'm able to collect a paycheck again, and we can hopefully put some of my family's financial stress uh, at ease. We did take a pay cut, which is the unfortunate nature of the contracting world. Some of my coworkers took a bigger pay cut than others, but it is what it is. That being said, I don't share the optimism that everybody else does. I believe that internally as a country, we are still heavily divided. If we can forego any of the other conversations that are being had, as of right now, it doesn't seem as though President Donald Trump is going to win any sort of a battle against the election. Do I think there was election meddling? Of course. Do I think there's been election meddling over the years? Of course. One major difference is, in spite of election meddling, if there's been enough honest results where one candidate concedes victory to another candidate, it alleviates the problem. And therefore, any amount of election meddling tends to go under the radar, and typically it doesn't really impact us as much. I think this year, among every other election we've ever had, I think due to the polarizing nature of not just the parties, but where the country's at, the polarizing nature of the two individuals running, I think the stakes were higher. And this isn't going to be 20 minutes of talking about the presidency. What I'm attempting to say is, even though a lot of people are heading into today with a renewed sense of optimism, I'm cautious. I'm trepidatious. I don't see the tribal allegiances breaking down. I don't see more and more people coming together. I don't see the division breaking down any further. In my brief time on this planet, in the even more briefer time that I've been paying attention to anything on the political scale, which again, I made a video for that. You can go back and watch it. I don't think it's that long. Um, I realize that there are people who may or may not, who may benefit from a Democratic run government. Whether Democrats rule the House, they rule the Senate, they have the presidency, or all of the above. It's my limited understanding, without having done a ton of research on the subject, that Democrats do tend to increase the size of the government, which could increase the number of governmental positions, which admittedly can be a good thing because, in my line of work, everybody talks about trying to get one of those GS positions. If you're not familiar with it, don't worry about it. It's not gonna deter from this overall conversation. But basically, getting involved in a government-based salary with a automatic enrollment in a government-based retirement system. So Democrats typically, increase the size of the government, increase the size of government programs, which does require an increase in taxes imposed upon us. I believe the president-elect, Joe Biden, is the one who, among other things that shocks me as why he would have been elected, uh, he was the one that proposed taxing Social Security, as in, for those of us who have worked our entire lives, regardless of how hard you worked, or whatever the case may be, if you've worked your life and you have paid Social Security taxes, then that Social Security is an entitlement that you earned. It's a benefit that you earned. All right, they already extracted taxes to pay for your Social Security, and then I can't remember when, but he came up with the idea, hey, let's tax it. Let's treat Social Security like earned income, and we'll give it an income tax. Which I don't know. I'm hesitant to speak intelligently on that, because I think it would take somebody with a economics major, maybe even a business major, to help break down the pros and cons of that. I don't think I'm smart enough to figure that out. Uh, but I think moving forward, I think we're still terribly divided, and I don't know. And the reason I'm speaking in this term, and I don't mean to stammer like I am, but while I realize that there's a portion of the country who views the Republican Party as the enemy, like literally an enemy, that their policies are dangerous, that their policies are detrimental to the country or their individual well-being. I'm trying not to be one of those that is the equal and opposite representation, like the yin and the yang, or the basic conflict theory. Basic conflict theory simply states that for every group that is for something, nature will automatically create an equal and opposite group that is against it. Once again, it just goes hand in hand with Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. I don't want to immediately jump into the camp that, well, Democrats are going to be dangerous and detrimental to this country, but it's, from the way that I view the world, it's hard not to. It's hard not to. Um, Especially with some of their more dangerous ideologies, uh, as far as whether it's supporting foreign countries, and I don't mean for the purpose of supporting our own interests overseas. I mean, like, the greatest discussion right now is the COVID stimulus, where we're going to get $600 per person, but like, and I don't know how much of this is rumor or fact, but like 700 million is going to go to Pakistan for like gender studies. Why do I need to send 700 million to Pakistan to talk about gender studies? I mean, is it in a Muslim country? In which case, they got a pretty hard stance on that. So I digress. Um, and there's so many different rabbit holes that can come from that. It's typically speaking, because the military is funded by tax money in order to increase other social programs, or expand the reach and capabilities of other governmental entities. The military typically pays under every Democratic president we've ever had. In my short time, that's been Clinton and Obama. The military has always suffered, and there's plenty of documentation to back that up. Um, I I don't know that, if and when, provided nothing else, no major bombshells come about that prevents Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from assuming their elected positions, I don't know that they are the way forward. I don't know that they're going to solve the country's problems. I don't know that they're going to bridge the gap. I find it completely and utterly disingenuous that all these people espousing hate, verbally spewing hate and division, on whatever platform they chose, whether they're an elected position, whether they're a celebrity position, that now that their proposed candidate has theoretically won the election, that now all of a sudden they have to change their stance. No, 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 no. It's time to bridge the divide. No, 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 no. It's time to come together. It's time for peace. And it's like, I'm confused. Which one is it? Fight, be violent, protest, riot, etc., because your chosen candidate isn't in charge or your party isn't in charge, and then now you flip flop. It's because of stuff like that that I'm very hesitant to be like, yay, 2021, because it's like, what's going to change other than the calendar? So here's a challenge I put out there. We physically elect people, in theory. In theory, if the system is working as it should be, we physically elect people. It's not a perfect system, but it is what it is. We physically elect people. All right, whether at the lowest level down at your community, whether it's mayors, school board members, etc., all the way up to Congress members, senators, etc. We created a government and elect people on a routine basis to physically preserve freedoms that are inherently ours. And we elect these people to act on our best interests. Tragically, there are winners and losers. And currently, we seem to only have a two-party system. I've seen some other candidates out there, but whether it's a lack of popularity or I just disagree with their position, even if I voted for a non-Republican, non-Democrat, it clearly hasn't done a whole lot. The point being is there are going to be winners and losers. So if we just work with the purpose of this conversation for the next couple minutes, if we just say Republican and Democrat, if the Republican wins, then those who voted for him or her are going to desire that that person represents them. And to be more specific, that person has to take into consideration when they're voting on a bill or whatever the case may be, when they're voting on a policy or something, their constituents in the congressional level are exactly who they represent in that district. So they have to take into consideration how are these things going to impact their district. So I think I'm in the 3rd congressional district of North Carolina. I'd have to look that up. So if my representative votes for or against something, there's two things at play. He or she is supposed to be voting based on the best interests of me and everybody else that lives in our district. The concern is whether or not they're voting for the party line. Well, according to this, we need to vote that way. And it's like, no. Doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican. How does it physically impact your constituents? The challenge is we need to get back to demanding that of our elected leaders. Don't represent your party. Don't represent yourself and your growth for personal wealth. Represent us. And I'll leave it at that. I know, especially on social media, more importantly with like people I went to high school with, we have many differences in perhaps our political views. And I often question, especially my friends from high school, why do they have those certain views? Like, well, okay, well, why are you a Democrat? Is it because historically speaking in the greater Chicagoland area, it's just the thing to do to be a Democrat? Well, I don't like guns. Okay, so you're not a big fan of the Second Amendment. Who cares? Do you like free speech? So, I understand a lot of us just get caught up in, the social trends or the popularity contest or whatever the case may be, whatever the appropriate verbiage is, and maybe not everybody votes on substance, but regardless of how you voted, we need to demand better of our elected leaders. All right? The funniest meme I ever saw, because of the truth behind it, is the Democrats fought Donald Trump his entire presidency over just stupid stuff. The completely and totally false Russian scandal, the tax scandal. I'm less concerned about the tax returns of a million or billionaire who decided to work for free as the president of the United States. I'm more concerned about the person who was making thousands of dollars, who got elected into office and is now worth millions of dollars. Somebody who had a grassroots campaign, got elected into position, and during the course of their political time, they've made millions. I'm also concerned about people who've been in politics, like the Pelosi's and whatnot, and this goes for the Republicans too. But I'm more concerned about the people who have been like a congressman or a senator, congresswoman too, for like 30, 40, 50 years. You know, don't tell me about fixing things if you've been in office for decades. If you haven't fixed it then, how are you going to fix it now? If you had thousands of dollars then, why do you have millions of dollars now? We need to demand better of our political leaders. We need to demand better of our elected leaders. So if you disagree, let me know. If you have a different point of view, let me know. Again, this is supposed to be the opportunity to have a discussion. We don't have to agree, but I believe we can be civil. I believe we can have civil discussions, and I believe we don't have to dehumanize each other even if we don't agree. But I'm taking the position that even though we changed the calendar from 2020 to 2021, it's not going to wash everything away. It's not automatically going to make things better because we changed the calendar. Based on some of the things I'm hearing, I don't think things are going to start to even look better until possibly June or July, if then. But, you know, I'm a redhead, and, therefore being a ginger, I guess, entitles me to certain negative stereotypes. So, whatever. But those are my thoughts. Again, you know the deal. If you like this video, hit like. If you didn't like it, well, then hit dislike. If you didn't like it, you probably stopped watching a long time ago. If you want to be notified when I make more videos, then hit the notification bell. I'm not in this for anything other than having a conversation and providing myself an outlet to vent. Beyond that, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, for those of you who did, and we'll see you next time.